Hello, Ivy here. This week's podcast is entitled The Illusion of Stability, The Future of the Throne, SGUK episode 176. In the modern era, the few remaining monarchies in the world present striking contrasts in how they position themselves within their nations. Broadly speaking, they fall into two categories: those that focus on providing a sense of stability and continuity, and those that lean heavily on spectacle and grandeur to project strength and relevance. Some royal families, notably in Europe, blend both approaches to varying degrees, aiming to balance tradition with evolving public expectations. The Scandinavian monarchies, such as those in Sweden, Denmark and Norway, tend to emphasise stability and understated service. These royal families maintain relatively modest lifestyles and engage closely with social issues, projecting an image of responsible stewardship. They rarely indulge in lavish displays, focusing instead on public duties, community projects, and fostering national unity. This approach has fostered a sense of trust and respect, with these monarchies viewed as stable institutions that adapt pragmatically to modern democratic values. In contrast, the British monarchy has long been associated with grandeur and spectacle, and this tendency has intensified during King Charles III's reign. Having waited decades for his ascension, Charles appears determined to leave an indelible mark, often through grandiose ceremonies and high-profile events. From the coronation to royal tours, no expense is spared, reinforcing a narrative that the monarchy is synonymous with national identity and prestige. This spectacular approach serves to convey that all is well in the UK, masking deeper societal and political tensions. It is a carefully curated image designed to persuade the public that monarchy is not just relevant, but indispensable. However, this strategy carries risks. The relentless pursuit of spectacle may alienate sections of the population who question the ethics of such expenditures, especially in times of economic hardship. Internally, dissent may occasionally surface from advisors or officials who advocate a more measured, service-focused image. Yet, those brave enough to challenge the king's preference for spectacle might face severe backlash. Charles, along with Camilla, is likely to perceive grandeur not merely as a display, but as a means of securing stability for the monarchy itself. A belief deeply rooted in his long-awaited ascent to the throne. To him, spectacle and stability are two sides of the same coin. A vivid, authoritative display that fortifies the institution against the tide of modern scrutiny. The debate between stability and spectacle within monarchies, particularly in the UK, reveals a profound disconnect between public display and public service. On the surface, the grandeur of royal events and ceremonies is presented as a means to reinforce national identity and continuity. However, This focus on spectacle often masks the more pressing social realities faced by vulnerable populations, such as homeless veterans and pensioners struggling to afford basic necessities. This raises a critical question. Can a monarchy truly provide stability if it is perceived as detached from the daily struggles of its citizens? Spectacle, while impressive, serves primarily to sustain the illusion of national cohesion and prosperity. It projects an image of strength and tradition, but can easily become a facade that conceals systemic issues. The lavish spending on royal events, especially during periods of economic hardship, can foster resentment among those who feel neglected by the state. This is particularly true when no corresponding effort is made to address the widening social disparities within the country. When veterans who served the nation find themselves homeless, or elderly citizens must choose between heating their homes and buying food, the spectacle of royal grandeur can seem not just tone deaf, but deeply hypocritical. True stability requires a monarchy that reflects and responds to the needs of all its people, particularly the most vulnerable. The Scandinavian monarchies offer a contrasting model. They focus on low-key engagements and social welfare initiatives, reinforcing their relevance through service rather than show. This creates a deeper, more genuine connection with their citizens, fostering respect and support. In the UK, the current reign's emphasis on spectacle risks alienating the public further, as it seems more concerned with maintaining an image than addressing real issues. King Charles III's apparent commitment to grand displays may stem from his long wait for the throne and a desire to cement his legacy. But this approach could ultimately undermine the monarchy's credibility. If the institution continues to prioritise spectacle over substance, it may hasten its decline rather than ensure its stability. True leadership would involve redirecting resources and attention towards those who need it most, demonstrating that the monarchy is not just a symbol of tradition, but a force for genuine national solidarity and progress. I do think that King Charles is more concerned about what the history books will reflect. So he won't care if he has spectacle-type events with lots of money spent on it. He will probably say that it could have been done and spent over decades. He had to wait. So he's doing as many of those type of things in the little time he clearly has left. I find the whole thing offensive. Offensive to people suffering in the UK. The royals and politicians want the outside world to believe that the UK is doing more than okay. I believe that there is a crucial point here. King Charles's apparent preoccupation with his legacy and historical image seems to be driving his inclination towards spectacle. After waiting decades for the throne, he appears determined to leave a lasting mark, using grand, costly events to cement his place in history. The rationale might be that he's condensing what could have been spread over a longer reign into a short window of time. However, this approach seems disconnected from the realities many UK citizens face today and every day. The optics are strikingly insensitive. Lavish spending on royal ceremonies contrasts sharply with the growing number of homeless veterans and struggling pensioners and families unable to afford basic necessities. The spectacle is not just tone deaf, it feels like an affront to those suffering, as it sends a message that their hardships are secondary to the monarchy's need to project an image of stability and grandeur. The narrative presented to the outside world that the UK is thriving is far removed from the everyday experiences of many citizens. This disconnect underscores a deeper issue. The monarchy and political establishment seem more invested in maintaining appearances than addressing real systemic problems. They rely on spectacle to distract from economic and social challenges, hoping to preserve the illusion of a stable, prosperous nation. Yet, this strategy risks accelerating the decline of the monarchy in an era of increased scrutiny and social awareness. People are less willing to accept opulence at the expense of social justice. Ultimately, a monarchy and its true stability isn't built on grand displays, but on its relevance to the people it serves. Without genuine empathy and action to address the nation's suffering, the current approach could backfire. And in my opinion, the signs are there already. The spectacle may leave a mark in history books, but it risks alienating the very people whose support is essential for the institution's survival. A royal rota team may slow things down sometimes, but their luck is also running out. Research findings, or at least some examples of research. There are increasing amounts coming out on this area of discussion. Existing research resonates with broader critiques of modern monarchies, particularly their attempt to balance symbolic pageantry with real-world relevance. Several academic resources discuss this stability versus spectacle dichotomy and how different European monarchies manage these roles. 1. The role of monarchy in modern democracy, published in 2020, edited by Robert Hazel and Bob Morris, which offers a comparative analysis of European monarchies, highlighting how spectacle-driven initiatives often overshadow efforts at democratic relevance. This text explores how public perception is shaped by media portrayal and state visits, especially in monarchies like Spain and the UK. 2. David Cannadine's ornamentalism delves into the historical evolution of British monarchy's emphasis on spectacle to uphold national identity and global image. It emphasises the performative aspects of royal engagements as tools for soft power, often at odds with addressing domestic socio-economic challenges. 3. Norwegian and Swedish models. Countries like Norway and Sweden maintain a more modest, stability-focused monarchy, prioritising civic duty over grandeur. Comparisons in Hazel and Morris's work show that these nations' restrained approaches might contribute to stronger domestic support and reduced Republican sentiment. These works suggest that excessive focus on spectacle, such as state ceremonies and costly pageantry, can alienate citizens, particularly during economic hardship. This is particularly relevant in the context where the British monarchy's lavish displays contrast sharply with increasing poverty and social issues. For a comparative perspective, looking into Scandinavian models might provide constructive contrasts and enrich arguments about the UK's precarious path. This could strengthen calls for awareness and deeper reforms. The idea of exploring the symbiotic yet strained relationship between media, monarchy and the establishment is indeed a powerful framework for discourse. I go on to outline a structured framework to examine these three interrelated aspects, keeping in mind their interplay of mutual dependence and hidden tensions. Heading: Framework for future discourse on media, monarchy and money. First bullet point and subheadings: the media's role, influence, dependency and agenda setting. Historical context: how the media has historically shaped public perceptions of monarchy, from royal scandals to carefully crafted public images. Moments where media coverage either bolstered or undermined the monarchy. Symbiosis with monarchy. The quid pro quo relationship. Exclusive access to royal stories in exchange for positive portrayals. How tabloids sensationalise monarchy-related content to boost sales. Conflict and criticism. Rare instances where the media has acted against the monarchy. For example, critical documentaries and exposés. They are rare. They have existed, but they're rare. How media conglomerates balance profit motives with potential pushback from the royal PR teams. 2. The monarchy. Wealth, power, and public perception. Money trails. The monarchy's creative financial sources, for example, sovereign grant, private estates, and tax exemptions. Cultural symbolism versus modern realities. There could be debates about whether the monarchy's cultural significance justifies its cost, but somehow I doubt that will ever happen anytime soon. Public opinion on the monarchy's relevance in the 21st century. Control of the narrative. It would be very interesting to analyse how the monarchy uses media to maintain its mystique and suppress dissenting narratives. It is slowly happening. It's just a matter of time before that becomes a real talking point. Discuss the limits of royal influence over global media outlets. But the reality is that the UK monarchy has drastically reduced impact these days over global media outlets. The facade is wearing thin these days. 3. Money, the driving force behind influence and control. Funding media influence. Would be interesting for an organisation or group to examine how financial incentives and advertising revenue influence media portrayal of the monarchy. If you know what to look for and where to look, there is a case to be made on the usefulness of discussing the economic ties between the monarchy, establishment, and key media figures. Trust me, the evidence is there. Once you know that, it is easy to recognise how the ducks all line up at key moments in the life of UK monarchy and parrot their opinions like one of their scripts. The role of the establishment. How financial and political elites protect the monarchy as a stabilising symbol of tradition. Look for evidence of collaboration between the establishment and media to shape public narratives. The impact on broader society. Look at how public money is spent on the monarchy and the resulting societal tensions. Analyse the ethical implications of the monarchy's wealth juxtaposed against issues like poverty and inequality. Key themes for exploration and discussion in certain spaces. 1. Mutual dependency. How media profits from the monarchy while the monarchy relies on favourable press to sustain its image. 2. Power imbalance. The monarchy and establishment have disproportionate control over the media, limiting freedom of expression. 3. Tensions beneath the surface. Delve into why the monarchy, media, and establishment may not genuinely trust or like one another, despite public-facing cooperation. Issues that should be discussed about UK monarchy, but which are managed out of existence by UK media and specialist teams such as Royal Rota to sell ideas to the public and persuade people to believe an agreed narrative. The ageing profile of senior royals needs discussion at government level of an analysis of the health challenges faced by King Charles. The implications of an ageing royal household. William and Kate, the reluctant heir. Exploration of their perceived reluctance to take on responsibilities now, as opposed to giving interviews expressing wishes and plans for changes in the future. Public perceptions and media portrayal of the heir and his wife. Volatility within the royal family. Rumoured mental health struggles and their impact on royal duties. UK royal family history on family members who have experienced mental health issues have never been treated sensitively and generally have been kept out of view of the public. If the family member is a prominent working royal, the likelihood is that they will be shoved into a role that they are not ready for, or any certainty that they will be anytime soon. Discussions should be taking place now, though I suspect, on track record, that won't happen. That in itself is a major red flag for the monarchy. Hidden strains and public facades. The potential consequences of hidden emotional and psychological struggles. How personal challenges influence public roles and responsibilities. A system on the brink. The fragility of the current royal structure and potential future scenarios. The potential for reform or crisis. Media and government responses. How the government and UK media might handle a potential royal crisis. An analysis of tabloids and media strategies in royal reporting, if any exist. And to bring this podcast to an end, as a conclusion, this podcast suggests an exploration of the underlying tensions and potential future scenarios for the British monarchy, taking into account personal dynamics within the royal family and broader societal influences. That's the end of today's podcast. There are a number of sections within the manuscript of this article. I think they give quite a lot of food for thought and hopefully discussions among yourselves, friends and family, and see sort of what views are out there. But the people that should be discussing it, like government, like the royal family itself, and its media partnership, to name but three. There are others, but those three will do for starters. They need to have a number of discussions like yesterday. Let's see what happens in the coming months. I don't think it's going to take years for the implosion to occur. And the implosion doesn't need to occur if they start discussions ASAP. So, for this week's podcast, it's bye from me. Bye from Ivy. Look forward to your comments on this one over the next few days. Bye. Something
you smile. Ways make 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 you smile.